Okay, we will start with the general evaluator for tonight, and that's Caleb.
Grace, as general evaluator for the evening, my job will be to get short general evaluation at the end of the meeting. And to also call on my evaluation team to be Olivia as the timer and Bethany as the outcome preparer. That is my role for the evening. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Caleb. The next role for tonight will be the timer, and that's Olivia.
Good evening. My role as timer, I am your timer for this evening's meeting. I will be timing prepared speeches, evaluations, and pocket speeches. I will record the time and give my report during the third part of the meeting, which is the evaluation portion. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster Maurice.
All right, thank you. And the all counselor and grammarian for tonight will be Bethany.
Hi everyone, my role for tonight is to be the all-counter grammarian. So what I'll be looking for is making sure that there isn't misuse of the English language. I'm also going to be looking for various filler words such as or some other type of ways to prolong our speeches without taking a mindful pause. So our word of the day is aloof. And also I'll be making sure that we are using and incorporating that word throughout our speeches and also throughout our interventions. And that concludes my explanation of my role. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our table topics master for tonight will be David.
Good evening, everyone. I will be your table topics master for this evening. And as table topics master, I will be asking a series of questions, and I'll be asking them relating to the theme, which is moving forward. I also have a couple of questions for the word of the day, aloof. So I'll be asking questions around that. The answer should be 1 to 2 minutes. And this gives a good opportunity to work on just having to give an answer without prior preparation and just work on your communication skills in general. That's my role for this evening. Thank you. And back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
And by the way, I got it in the chat. We only have one online participant tonight. So it says that aloof means non-interested, not forthcoming, or any other words related to that. At this time, since we don't have a prepared speech for tonight, we will go right into our table topics session. And our table topics master for tonight will be David.
Good evening again, everyone. And for the table topics, as I said, I was going to use our meeting theme of moving forward. So I have a series of questions. And the first question is something I've thought about a lot in my life. It's about technology. And the question is, how does technology help us move forward? And what are its potential drawbacks? One. Okay.
Could you repeat that question? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Maurice raised his hand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The question for tonight is about technology. What are some of the drawbacks? Because you know there are benefits to technology, but it has drawbacks too. Fellow Toastmasters, one drawback to technology that I've experienced in life was the use of the calculator. when I was, I guess, early in elementary school or sometime during the middle of elementary school, our family first got a calculator. But one of the biggest drawbacks of having a calculator was, I remember that I knew some tricks in long division. There were some situations in long division where and I forgot what it was. In certain situations, you had to do a certain move or a certain trick, so to speak. And I don't know how to do that. I don't remember what situation it was, but I am aloof to that. And that's a way of me not moving forward by not knowing that part of doing long division in those special cases. And another drawback of technology that I can think of was a long time ago, I used to know a whole bunch of phone numbers, and that's not the case now. Since we have a cell phone and since you can store phone numbers on it, that part of my memory or that part or that type of skill is no longer in my repertoire. And those are two drawbacks of technology that I personally experienced. Back to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Maurice. And I too was thinking about calculator, it's because I was very old, and when I was young, calculators were just coming out. Before that, people were using slide rules, and it was such a big debate over, is that just going to ruin people? They're not going to know how to do math. But, so I think it's important to use technology. There's legitimate shortcuts and aids it can give us, but we need to understand what's underlying it as well. So that's interesting. Thank you for your answer, Maurice. So my next question regarding moving forward is, I know sometimes in life, I feel like I really get stuck. Like I just can't get out of where I am. So what are some strategies you use to keep moving forward when you feel stuck? And we have Caleb has his hand up.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The question that was posed to me was, remembering correctly, what are some moments where I felt stuck and how have I kept moving forward, or what strategies did I use to keep or start moving forward again? So for the past 6 years, I've been a graduate student. First at the medical, actually, let me go back. For the past 8 years, I've been a graduate student. 2 years as a master's student at East Carolina University. And then 6 years split between the Medical University of South Carolina and then the University of South Alabama, where I'm at now. After being in higher education for almost 15 years of my life now, there have been several moments where I felt completely stuck, where one day leads into the other. And all of my experiments are looking the same, and I'm aloof to the results, and I'm aloof to my friends, and I start to withdraw into myself. And this first happened during my master's, about a year in, because that was one of the hardest growth periods of my life. And then it happened again about 2 years into my PhD, when I was really cognizant of how much time I had left, or how much time I thought I had left. When I found myself in those moments, something that I've had to keep in mind is that I've wanted to be here. This is where I wanted to be. And it's not very often that someone gets money from the government, mix things in a tube, and figure out questions and answers. And it's really lucky because I never thought I would be at this position. And when I was a little kid, mixing together things I found outside and pretending they were potions, my dream was to do that professionally as an adult. And that's what I ended up doing. So I go back to that childlike sense of wonder with what I'm doing with my life and how I'm living and doing the experiments that I would want to have done back when I was young. That's my answer, and back to you, tabletop master.
Thank you, Caleb. And I love that idea of following your childhood dream and always wanting to do, mixing things in a test tube. That's really incredible. Yeah. All the way into adulthood and into a PhD. So the next question is on a somewhat related topic. Let's see. How about this? How can we ensure that moving forward doesn't mean leaving others behind? Sometimes we move on to bigger and greater things, but there's other people either in our lives or in society that may be not coming with us. How can we not leave them behind?
I'll answer that one.
Okay, great. Olivia, thank you. All
The
yours.
question, thank you. I'm going to start my time. I think I can do both.
Okay.
The question is, as we move forward in life, how can we be sure not to leave others behind? My answer to that question is to stay present, be aware, be intentional. Remember your beginnings or where you started and those that were there with you. And just try to be as humble as possible. That goes against the thought of being aloof, because aloof means to be distant or not friendly or forthcoming. So try not to be aloof. When I looked at my zodiac sign, Aquarius, we are known for being aloof. And I just found that appalling because I consider myself friendly, but at times I can be a little resistant or hold back and not as forthcoming. So perhaps some of those characteristics do fit me, or they could fit a majority of people. But I never want to forget where I come from, those that were there with me, my community, whatever that may be, my family, whether related by blood or just by love. And I think if we just stay present, consistent, and intentional, we can be sure to not grow aloof. That is the answer to your question. And back to you, David, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Olivia. Love your answer. And I think that's an important question and a great answer. And also thank you for reminding me to use the word of the day, aloof. And thank you for not being aloof and volunteering to answer.
Thank you.
So for the next question, I like this question. What historical event do you think was a pivotal point for humanity moving forward? And of course, there could be many, many, but just let me hear a historical event that you personally think was a pivotal point in humanity moving forward. Bethany, thought of one?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. The question that was posed to me was, what was a historical event that really was pivotal in moving humanity forward? what I think of, especially related to the medical field, is the ability for people to recognize that infection is caused by something called bacteria. So even though it's very small and I quickly see with the naked eye, being able to make the ability to see that one thing is directly caused of another thing is very important, and the ability to be able to decide that that thing is important, especially in the idea of surgical settings, by being able to maintain a completely sterile environment. The history of medicine will be able to go forward, especially when it comes to surgical operations and being able to reduce morbidity and mortality. So being able to both prolong life and also to ensure that life is not lost along the way. And I think that it's very important to really understand the history of medicine, because with all the modern day things that we take for granted, we always have to think back to where we started from the beginning. And that concludes my answer. Back to you.
Yeah, I think there's been so many pivotal points in humanity moving forward, and that's a great example. I remember hearing stories in the old, when they used to have battles and wars, and doctors would cut off people's arms to save their arm, but then they would die. And it turned out they didn't understand about infection, about how little microorganisms can get in. And so that has saved countless lives and made human suffering, much reduced. So I think we have time for a few more because it's still a little early. I'll move on to some regarding being aloof. So my first question is, how do you approach someone who seems aloof, but whom you would want to befriend? Maybe you're at a party or something, and there's someone you'd like to befriend or talk to, but they just seem distant or aloof. Okay, Caleb has his hand up.
Good evening again, everyone. The question posed to me was, how would I approach someone who was aloof, but who I wanted to befriend? I'm going to mix up this question a little bit by not answering it exactly how it was posed, but to tell a story, because for the past 3 or so months now, Bethany and I have been trying to approach this cat in our neighborhood that was named Kit Kat. And it is the most aloof cat I've ever seen. But tried bribing it with chicken, tried bribing it with other foods, and no matter what we do, it will not come up to us. And usually as we get close, it will look at us curious for about a minute, and then it just takes off back over a hill. And this is completely opposite behavior to another cat that used to be in the neighborhood, but we haven't seen for a while, called Cal, who came up to us almost immediately and then walked into Bethany's house like he owned the place. I think it goes without saying that I'm more of a dog person because it's easier for me to approach dogs, and I feel like that dog and I are usually on the same wavelength. But cats are different. Cats, they see you and they might want to come up to you, or they might want to scratch you, or they might just want to watch you from afar. And I don't do super well with that level of aloofness, but I'm learning to, if it means befriending the neighborhood cats. That is my answer.
Thank you again, Caleb. I think cats can be a great example of aloofness. I have a cat, and if someone rings my doorbell and it's not someone that comes over all the time, my cat is under the bed hiding. But on the other hand, I have a neighbor that has a cat, if somebody rings the doorbell, I mean, the cat's the first one to the front door, and like, who are you? What do you want? So it's amazing how different personalities cats can have. So my next question regarding this topic is, and I think this is a good question, especially in this context of giving speeches, because I've given a speech before at work when I was working, and sometimes I could tell that I just lost the audience, like they just don't care. So the question is, what strategies can be used to engage an aloof audience during a presentation? And I think we got Maurice coming up.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, what are some strategies toward an aloof audience when I make a presentation? I don't know if I had a real aloof audience as a whole, but I would have to do some unconventional strategies, even those that are way out of my comfort zone, if the audience is aloof. For example, I'm doing a presentation on how water flows. You know, well, some may not be happy, but they'll wake up. Some will wake up. But other strategies, I may have to stumble on purpose, even though I may stumble anyway during the presentation. But something to get their attention out of the ordinary, I guess, out of ordinary situation, unconventional methods, I should say, rather than the content of the presentation, or other than the content of the presentation. And those are some strategies that I have to address an aloof audience if I need to. Back to you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Maurice. Yeah, I love the hand clap, that can do it. And I've actually employed that before when I was working. I would give a presentation occasionally to like maybe 30 people. And it would be more of a workshop setting, but if people were just, I would just be like, hey, I would just yell out. Yeah. And then I'd be like, I'm just kidding. But it'd get a laugh and kind of do it in a lighthearted way. So I think this is a serious topic and serious question in today's society, especially. This next question is, what impact has social media had on people's aloof behavior in real life? Because it seems like so many people spend their lives now online, on Facebook or wherever, and not so much in real life. So what impact has social media had on people's aloof behavior in real life? And Bethany has her hand.
The question that was posed to me was about social media and its causing people to become more aloof. This is something that is very pertinent, especially in this generation. I am part of Generation Z, born in 1998, so I can attest to the impact that social media has had in at least my generation compared to just looking at other generations. An example for me would be just going to the gym, and whenever you work out or you're doing a set, sometimes you take a rest between your sets, so you're able to give your muscles some time to take a break. One thing that I've really noticed was, especially in the younger generation, was the constant use of phones, or just every time somebody would put down their weights or check their phone, or after they would finish a set, they would check their phone, instead of just looking around and really understanding where they are in the space. Sometimes you even walk into people while on the phone, or even put the AirPod in, or a whole bunch of different stuff going on. So I think it's really interesting seeing how, at least my generation, being very much technology driven to the point to where sometimes just a small social interactions that we have with each other, just like giving a small smile or even just waving, that kind of is diminished. So it's just something I kind of thought about, especially going to the gym and then sometimes deciding to just be more present in the moment. And that concludes my answer. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Bethany. Yeah, I love that answer as well, and it is, I think it kind of goes back to the question Caleb answered about technology. And technology can be a wonderful tool, but it can also have a negative downside, and it's learning to use it correctly. And we all need that real in-person experience. Maybe one day somebody will invent the hologram or something where we can really be there. But right now, there's no substitute for just seeing each other in person, I think, at least for me. So one more question regarding this topic is, and I can apply this to myself a lot. We talked about being aloof, meaning being just disinterested, not present. What is the difference between, or is there a difference between being aloof and being introverted?
I'll answer that one.
Sure, thank you, Olivia. All yours.
Let me set my time. The difference between aloof and being an introvert. I think that there is an argument for both. Some similarities are they are different, not friendly, and typically not forthcoming. I think the difference lies in the reason why. I think people that are naturally introverts find it sometimes painful, or maybe they're just shy to the point of, yes, it being painful at times to be outgoing, to be around other people, to strike up conversations with strangers, to be themselves, whatever themselves, quote unquote, may be. And so they are most comfortable when they are at home or in their safe space or their comfortable place in their bedrooms, or maybe even hiding behind a computer screen or a cell phone on social media and things of that nature. But someone that is aloof, I think that they don't suffer from shyness. It is just intentionally who they are. They just are this way because this is what makes them feel good. They don't like to share or be forthcoming with people. They prefer to be in their own lane, doing their own thing, their own way. Because some parts of being aloof I can relate to. There are times when I don't need to be around anybody, and I don't have to share anything with anyone either. I'm okay with just being in my own space. However, I am nowhere near an introvert. I am very much extrovert. I like to be around people. I'm very outgoing. I meet no strangers, and I can have a good time in any setting. That is my answer, and back to you, Table Topics Master David.
Thank you, Olivia. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. And myself, I am introverted. I think that's one of the reasons I became an engineer, because I like to just be on my own and do my own little thing. But sometimes people misinterpret my being introverted with being aloof, like I just not interested in them, or in something. But a lot of times I am, and I'm thinking quite a bit about it. I just don't show it, and that's who I am.
Yeah.
It's got its advantages and disadvantages. I think the world needs people of all different personalities, and we need to understand.
I agree.
So,
Yes, I do agree.
and I think everybody's answered 2 table topics, so I think we're about ready to move on to the next portion of our meeting, perhaps. So thank you for letting me be your table topics master, and I really truly enjoyed each and every one of your answers. I think we all learned something today.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Reese.
All right, we're at the next portion of the meeting, which is the evaluation period. And our general evaluator for tonight will be Caleb.
We just, for the meeting tonight, I would like to call on the first member of the evaluation team, which is Olivia. It's the time.
I was having a hard time unmuting myself. Thank you, Caleb. I was your timer for this evening's meeting, and here is my report. For Maurice, your first answer was 1 minute, 48 seconds. Caleb, 2 minutes, 14 seconds. Olivia, 1 minute, 55 seconds. Bethany, 1 minute, 15 seconds. Caleb, 1 minute, 40 seconds. Maurice, 1 minute, 31. Bethany, 1 minute, 54. And Olivia, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And Bethany, I just wanted to say this, just in case you ever run into me at the gym. I am obsessed. I hate to say obsessed, but I must record my workout. And sometimes I can do 2 separate sets or use 2 different pieces of equipment or different machines. And then I can record it in my phone. But I have been keeping a running log. To look at me, you wouldn't think so. I can understand that. But I have a running log of my workout in the gym for probably the last 10 years or so. So if you ever see me on my phone in between sets, I promise I'm only logging in what I just did or I'm changing my music. I just wanted to say that. So, but I agree. Most people are just obsessed with their phones and social media and all that good stuff. So, back to you, Caleb, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Olivia. Before I call on the Mary and the counter, I'd like to say that I also keep a running log of my gym sets in my phone. Although I've seen other people who have worked out and they have a notebook with them, and I see them writing,
Mm-hmm.
recording their workouts. And I
Yep,
might
I
need,
used to do that.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just said years ago I used to do that. I used to have to write everything down because I was like, nope, I don't want to forget. And I like to see when I can do it, lift a little bit more, or like, oh man, I remember this time last year I used to do more of this, and now I've fallen off. So yeah, I do keep track of it and go back and look at it quite often to check my progress. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's it's funny because I do the same, but I normally go back to pencil and paper so I don't. I'm bad because I'll record my set and then I'll start browsing on my phone rather than interacting with anyone. But now I should call on the counter and grammarian for the evening, which is Bethany.
Okay, so I have the word of the day count. We did pretty good today. So for Maurice, you did 3 times word of the day. And Caleb, you also got 3 times. And Olivia, I counted 4. David, I counted 5 uses. And then for me, I got 1. And then after our all counter and grammar count, Caleb used the word twice, and then I think I used kind of once. And that concludes my explanation of the results from tonight for our word of the day and also counter from Marion. Back to you, Caleb.
Thank you, Bethany. I also noticed that we were not aloof with the usage of the word of the day, as everyone was saying it quite often. Aloof is one of my favorite words, to be honest. It's not used super often, but it's so good at describing so many people that you see in the day-to-day. especially now with social media and phones being so prevalent. Everyone's looking down and no one's looking around. But I recall seeing articles where people were saying the exact same thing when newspapers first came out in the printed form following the printing press. So maybe we've just been complaining about and interacting for years now. As far as my general evaluation of the meeting, I believe that it went well, as they usually do. The in-person meetings are usually my favorite because I prefer seeing people in person. And I get so burnt out of Zoom meetings over the course of graduate school that I would be pleased if I never have to do another Zoom meeting again. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And in this post-COVID world, Zoom meetings are here to stay. And I know there are some people who swear by them. I would never want to go to another in-person meeting again. So I know I'm probably an odd one out. But other than that, I don't believe there was anything else to report for the meeting other than it went well. And that I'm excited for the next one. For that, I'll hand it back to the Toastmaster for the evening. All right, thank you, Caleb.
At this time, just a few things. 2 weeks from now, we won't have a meeting because of Memorial Day. So next week will be virtual only meeting. And just encourage you to take a roll or if you have a prepared speech. That'll be good either way. And I will relinquish my role as Toastmaster, and I will reclaim my role as the president.